That's what basketball people say a lot. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yes, correct.
That's very, very interesting. We can have a little segue to finish this interview. That's a nice way to tie back to your son and your YouTube adventures. And as you said, it's, if you don't work hard and you don't actually try and understand what the data says about like your content, if you don't keep up with best practices, and if you don't work hard, editing videos, making content in general is more hard than I think people realize. So do you want to speak a little bit about that? It's a crazy story.
It's a fascinating sort of latest chapter to my life story. The YouTube years, because I'm better known as Thogdad. My son is Ogden, Theo Ogden. 10 years ago, and this is key, age 13, he set up a YouTube channel called Ogden FIFA. And the Ogden name comes from Theo Ogden, shortened Ogden FIFA, and he played FIFA, the game on the PlayStation. And very quickly, he got hundreds of subscribers. And his friends in London, his school friends, said to him, "You know what, Theo, you're very good at what you do with these FIFA." So he'd play a FIFA game against his friends and put it up on a YouTube channel. And one day he came to me and said, "Dad, I've set up a YouTube channel." And I'm like, "Son, well done. But first of all, can you explain what is a YouTube channel?" 10 years ago, I knew what YouTube was. I'd go on there to watch my favorite music from the 80s. I knew what YouTube was. But the concept of a YouTube channel
is very new. 2013
was new to me. Because I grew up in the days that if you wanted to make it in media or entertainment, you had to be part of the BBC or ITV. If you wanted to be a singer, you had to get a major recording, group to hire you. If you wanted a book published, you had to get a major publisher. Everything was controlled by the big boys, as we'd say, the big boys and girls of publishing, of music, of media. The concept of social media, where you or I or a 13-year-old son can set up a channel and start broadcasting, that was completely new to me. And 10 years ago, my son had to explain what he was doing. So his friend said to him, "Well, you're very good at this. Why don't you go to live football games and make vlogs, video blogs about the game?" So to cut a long story short, my son started watching Bolton Wanderers games. That's our team. It's a little team in the third tier, hopefully soon in the second tier of English football. But to cut a long story short, the channel started to grow. The first game we went to was Bolton Wanderers versus Eastleigh in the FA Cup. And my son, on the way, said, "Dad, I've set up this YouTube channel. You're going to drive me to the game. You're going to buy the tickets. But whatever you do, when the camera's on, stay out of camera, because nobody wants to see someone's old dad." But okay, later that day, I appeared. I looked into the camera and probably picked up a beer and said something, a bit daft. And people kind of liked that. They liked the fact that there's this 13-year-old boy, and that the dad was, making a few dad comments. So people wrote to my son and said, "Wow, we like your dad. We like Thogdad." So my son is very smart as a businessman. He realized, okay,
there's value in this.
There's value in this. And suddenly, and over the last 10 years, over 2,000 videos. Theo's made 2,000 videos in the last 10 years. So that concept of work ethic, hard work, persistence, he's obviously got, I think, from myself and from my wife. He's built up into, I think we're one of the best known sort of father-son partnerships on YouTube. And Theo's become globally one of the biggest football vloggers. He's got 1.74 million subscribers. Over the years, he's had nearly 700 million views, individual video views. And the interesting thing from my perspective, I only analysed this recently. This is the first time in my life where someone else has kind of determined my course, because it was my son's idea. And over time, I became an integral part of the channel. And it was a case of, I'm almost working for my son. This whole thing came from Theo. It was his idea. And the last sort of 14 years of my life have been influenced by my son. I suppose that's the nature of families. Once you've got children, your life sort of goes in different ways. And this is a very good example of how that happened. And I sort of decided, let's go with it. It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy being in these videos. We've traveled all over the world. The first major trip we took was actually to the Russian World Cup in 2018. That was astonishing because a lot of English fans did not go to that because they were worried about the Russian hooligans and about the situation, about the security side of things.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd worked and lived in Russia, I spoke enough Russian to get by.
Yeah.
So I got permission for Theo to get out of school, because he would have been 17 at the time.
Yeah, it was summer.
So he missed 2 weeks of school, and I said, look, we're going to go to Russia for 5 weeks, watch football, make videos. And we became national news in Russia. Bizarrely, these videos that we made were picked up by sort of Russian television. And they loved the fact that there was an English lad and his dad traveling around, staying in Airbnbs, traveling on Russian trains, and just enjoying themselves and making fun videos about what was going on. And there was even one scenario where on the main Russian channel there was a television debate program, and half an hour of the debate was about whether we were working for the Russian security services. A lot of people thought that we might have been paid off by the FSB to give this kind of to make these positive videos.
Right.
Whereas in reality, of course, we weren't. We were just making YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So that cultural clash became a national debate. Ogden and Thogdad, are they for real or not?
Yeah.
So there was this bizarre period of 5 weeks when Theo's YouTube channel doubled, when he was making headlines in Russia. And after that, things just went on the up. You know, we went to the Euros, of course, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. We went to the Qatar World Cup. Theo's traveled to Asia, to South America, to North America. We've been all over the world making these videos, having great father-son times. And of course, it's launched my son's career. He's 23 years old now, and he loves what he does. Yeah. So it's a really interesting chapter in my life. But interestingly, it's kind of everything that I've done has led from the last thing that I've done. Mm-hmm. So it all goes back to KPMG and those years in Manchester, and the work ethic I learned and the professionalism I learned, and me teaching that to my children. Everything that I did in my 20s really has paid off in my 50s.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah,
I really like that. There was an article in the Financial Times recently that spoke about how a lot of CFOs were starting to assume a CEO role.
Yeah,
a lot of and I would say probably a lot of CEOs were recruited from a CFO role.
Yes.
And
yes.
do you want to speak a little bit to that? What do you think about that?
That's very, very interesting. So certainly when I was working for KPMG Manchester in audit, in consulting, very early on, I decided I wanted to work with small and medium-sized businesses. And the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, sometimes you turn up to the client and you'd be given a box of bank statements, and you'd be told, right, create our financial statements from that. So from a technical side, I found that very interesting. More importantly, I learned so much aged 22 to 25 from working with local entrepreneurs. So one day this might be a guy in Rochdale who makes car panels. The next day it would be a guy in Wigan who has a chain of newsagents. Another day it would be a guy in High Wycombe who's got a pipe business. I would meet, because they're small businesses, you're not just dealing with middle management, you're dealing with the owners.
Yeah.
And that you're dealing with entrepreneurs. So from a very early age, I gravitated towards the entrepreneurs because I wanted to learn what makes them tick. So what I put in, so at every stage of my career, I've realized that I don't just want to be the traditional, the standard, the stereotypical accountant in a little room running the numbers and passing the numbers to the CEO. Yeah. I wanted to be the guy who learnt all the skills, who knows his way around a set of financial statements, who can actually, like I said, who can take that box and prepare the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, the income statement, and all the notes, who completely knows their way around the financial side of the business, who can model the business over the next 5 to 10 years. So I learnt all those skills, but I was conscious that to be a CEO, to be an entrepreneur, to be someone who sets up a business, like I set up my cafe, like I set up my property funds, that you've got to learn a little bit more, that you've got to learn about the HR side of things, how to deal with people, how to motivate a team.
Leadership,
Leadership, exactly. That you've got to learn about sales.
Yeah.
That if you've got a widgets business, you've got to sell those widgets to X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, well, there's nothing to account, is there?
Yeah.
If you can't sell it and market it, if you don't have the team, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
So from an early stage, I was conscious that I'm heading in the CFO direction, but that I'm going to pick up the skills to be a CEO.
Yeah.
And in some ways, my story is very different, because at the age of 33, I went from CFO to investor. So I'd made enough money to sort of take a step aside and say, right, in the future, I want to do things in the world of charity. So I've done a lot of charity stuff over the years. I want to spend time with my family. So in my 30s, I was walking my young children to school up in Altrincham. And I loved that. I was picking them up from the school gate. Since then, I've done a lot of consulting work, non-executive directorships. And occasionally, yes, like I've talked about the Lenta hypermarkets situation, I'll go off and I'll run a company. So my situation is very unusual.
Yeah.
Is that I've created the lifestyle that I want.
Yeah.
But I do know that because of my experiences, I could very confidently step into the CEO role. And if I was hiring a CEO and I got applications from good CFOs, of course, I'd want to meet them.
Yeah.
I'd want to look at their character. I'd ask myself, can I see this person leading?
That's the thing.
Yes.
Exactly. That's the thing, because if you think CFO, you don't really necessarily, the stereotype is you don't really think of a leader. So do these things, like, and as CEO, sometimes you think maybe they're not the best necessarily with numbers. It depends on people, obviously.
That is true. And I've met, and I won't name names, I remember once there was a wonderful CEO, an absolute leader character, who never got into the detail, but they had the vision. They had the ideas. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Big ideas. And they were great ideas. But my goodness, that person really didn't understand the detail.
Never opened Excel in his life.
Wouldn't really know the link. Wouldn't really certainly couldn't put together the financial statements. Would struggle a little bit with how financial statements work. But I tell you, that person is now a billionaire.
Right.
But because they're more they're the leader. They're the leader type who says, right, we're going to do this, and I'm going to find a team to help me make that happen.
Yeah.
So the whole area is fascinating, but certainly if you go through the chartered accountancy process, if you've been a good CFO, it's an incredible base to go to make a step up to CEO. But a lot of it, like I said, comes down to personality type, because there are the sort of conventional, stereotypical CFOs who really don't want to step out of their box, who are a bit introverted, a bit shy. To some extent, that was the younger me. But as a CFO, there are times when you've got to stand up to the CEO. You've got to go into that boardroom and be honest about the numbers, about the projections, about what's right, about what's wrong.
That takes character.
That takes real guts.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might be treading on the feet to some extent of the board. You might actually be telling the board
that they're wrong.
That this idea you've come up with, I think it's wrong from a financial perspective. But you've got to have the guts to speak up in that boardroom on that day. Otherwise, bad things might happen. Bad decisions might be made. But certainly, I think there's the CFOs who will never be CEOs, and the CFOs who can be brilliant CEOs, but can go beyond that and be really great owners, be great entrepreneurs, great visionaries.
I feel like maybe we can end on that with the base of the financial knowledge of a CFO. You can still acquire leadership skills. You have to get out there and affirm character.
Yes, and it all depends upon the decisions that you make over the years. And I look back to all the decisions I made, some of them relating to career and some of them relating to lifestyle choices. One of the most important things I ever did in my life was age 21. This was 1989. There was a big boom in the city, and a lot of my friends were taking jobs in investment banks. And I said, no, the only thing I want to do next year is go around the world with a backpack on. And it's one of the most important things I ever did. And I say it's turned me from a bit of an introvert to someone with real confidence. Because if you could strap on a backpack, turn up in Mumbai or Jakarta and cope, in the days before mobile phones, before the internet, if you can go around the world by yourself for a year, then you can cope with anything in life, in your career.
Yeah.
And also the decision I took to go out to Russia in 1993 was incredible in so many ways, in terms of career, in terms of becoming a CFO age 29, in terms of running a company of 10,000 people age 40. But more importantly, in terms of, I married a Russian lady, I speak Russian, I've got 2 kids who are half Russian. The decisions you take in life and in your career are, oh my goodness, I look back at those 2 and think that's made who I am.
Yeah.
And also going back to stepping outside the comfort zone.
That seems like a thing, like you're not going to regret it because you will learn for whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
I certainly think so, because my life could have taken a very different course. I could have stayed in Manchester, England,
all your life.
Yes, all
in
my
Manchester.
life. Yes, I could have worked my 30s, become a
fine.
senior, which is absolutely fine. It's a lovely city. I could have worked as a financial controller and then a CFO of a good company in the northwest of England, had a good salary, had a nice house up there, but my life would have been 15% of what it is, of what it has been, through doing things a little bit, through being a little bit of a maverick, through doing my own things and making choices that, when I went to Russia, people told me, you're making a bad choice for your career, because you won't be taken seriously within the KPMG hierarchy. If you come back after 3 years, you might slip down the hierarchy. And I just felt, I'm going to Russia. I just feels right. It just feels like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you. I think CFOs and even young junior marketeers like me can learn a lot about this. So thank you very much.
Hubert, it was a pleasure to come.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.